It's a little morbid, but I always say, do I want my tombstone to say she wanted to or she did? And I wanted to say, well, whether I succeed at it or not, I want to try. And so I think that if you sit down and you try to write my book or your favorite book, if you sit down and it's like, I'm going to create that, that's intimidating. That makes you say, okay, I can't get this out.
Thank you for joining us today on Bits by Bacon. I am your host, Misty. Today, I'm excited to welcome ReShonda Tate. She is an award-winning journalist, a national best-selling author, and one of Houston's most influential storytellers. ReShonda, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me.
You have written more than 50 books. That's a huge accomplishment. But your book, Let the Church Say Amen, was adapted into a film produced by T.D. Jakes and Queen Latifah. Pretty cool. What was it like seeing your characters come to life?
You know, that was one of the highlights of my career. To be able to see my words come alive on the screen was just monumental, and have these actors that I love come up to me and say, am I doing your characters justice? So that was a great feeling. Regina King directed it. And so I was able to be on set the whole time, experience it all. It was a wonderful experience.
That's awesome. Did they shoot here in Texas?
No, we shot in Atlanta. And,
Okay.
I have two that were made in films, and I wanted Texas so bad. But at the time, we didn't have an incentive program. So both movies were shot in Atlanta.
Okay. And so I did a little digging on your website. So you went to the University of Texas, put the horns. What was your major?
Broadcast journalism.
Okay. And I went to Stephen F. Austin and I studied radio and television.
Okay. Yeah.
But I did not get into radio and television. Well, I did work for Rock 101 before it switched format. So I was on the radio side. But I mostly did sales. So you were a journalist. Were you on KPRC?
I was. So I worked on air. I was an anchor in Beaumont, Port Arthur, Oklahoma City. I came here in Houston. I worked at KPRC and KRIV, Fox 26. So I worked at both of those stations. Before that, I actually worked behind the scenes at Channel 13. So I've been all around.
So you produced, but you were also on air.
Yes.
Yes. And what did you like more? Did you like producing and directing people, or did you like more being on camera?
I'm definitely more the on camera. And more the on camera.
I love that. So for your research for your books, where are your stories coming from? What are you pulling from?
So I write historical fiction now, and I love historical fiction because it's the best of both worlds. I get to dig into the facts, do the research part that my journalism background affords me, and then use the fiction to fill in the blanks. So for my latest book, With Love from Harlem, what I would do is spend almost 3 years from start to finish with this book of research. I went to the Library of Congress. I read autobiographies and memoirs of all the people in my book. And I got all of these facts and discovered all of this wonderful content and stories that I didn't know about. And then I would come in and, like I said, fill in the blanks with fiction.
I really like that. So 53 books that you have now?
54. With Love from Harlem is my 54th.
54. Congratulations. And your genre, you cater to teens as well as adults.
So I have a line of books for teenagers. I haven't written those in several years. My primary focus now is on historical fiction. But yes, I've written for teens, young adults, and adults for years. But now I'm primarily historical fiction.
Okay. And are you in the works of something right now?
I am.
Are you taking a break?
No, there's no such thing as a break for me. I am on a whirlwind tour still. With Love from Harlem just came out at the end of January. So I'm still promoting it. The book is doing great. We made the USA Today bestsellers list. And so I just turned in my next book, which is Daughters of the Steel, about women and the role they played in the moonshine bootlegging industry. A lot of people don't know the women were a big part of that. And so I've been researching and digging into that for years.
Oh, that's definitely going to be a made for TV movie for sure.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And so you travel, you're a speaker as well. What's your time with you're working, writing and doing your research for your book and then also speaking? What does your speaking engagements look like? Are you doing one a month or you do like a series and then you take a break so that you can do more research and write?
Yeah, there's no such thing as a break. I speak. I'm invited a lot of times to speak. So I work in between. I'm also managing editor for a newspaper here in Houston. So I still do that full time during the day. And then I utilize those spare moments and I travel on the weekends. Like I'm going to New York next weekend. And I do everything from writing workshops to I speak at college and high school graduations. I do motivational speaking. So I really do a whole lot. Some of it's tailored to whatever that person's theme is.
Right.
And some of just empowerment. I do a lot of empowerment speeches.
For your paper, are you only online or you have print as well?
We have print as well. It's called the Defender, Houston Defender, and it is Houston's leading Black newspaper. And so we cover stuff from all over the world, and I am managing editor for that.
Okay. And your job as managing editor, are you just approving the final layout and then I don't even know what that looks like. So share with us what your responsibilities look like.
I wish. So I still write stories. So I write several stories a week. And then I make sure that my reporters are writing stories that the community cares about. And I do a lot of editing. So yeah, I stay busy all the way around.
Absolutely. You are a busy woman. What are your hopes for the impact of this next generation? Are your stories hoping that it's impacting the next generation? What is your books? They're timeless, right? Because you're studying history.
Right.
And I guess my question would be, are your hopes that we're not repeating history or we're just acknowledging our history and to do the research and to find out where we came from? What are, some historical whether it's lessons or patterns of our communities, affecting our communities.
Yeah. No, I mean, that is why I love historical fiction. What I am doing is I am digging up women that have been erased from history. With Love from Harlem is about Hazel Scott. I had no idea who Hazel Scott was. And she was the first Black person to have her own national television show. I grew up wanting to have my own national television show. So how did I not know the first woman to ever do that?
Sure.
And so little things, it's about unearthing this history of these women that we have no idea about and bringing them to a modern day audience. And as I toured, the number of people that say, I didn't know about this. I did a previous book on Hattie McDaniel and I knew her from Mammy and Gone with the Wind, but I didn't know she was the catalyst behind getting rid of people being restrictive covenants, people being able to live in whatever neighborhood they want to. So I live out here in the suburbs because Hattie McDaniel paved the way, but I never knew that until I wrote this book. And so I love discovering those little things about these women and then bringing their story to the masses.
That's wonderful. What has been your favorite book that you've written?
So that is hard to say. That's like saying, which one of your children do you like best? Now, her son, she likes her son, that baby boy, the best. But every time I book, I am like so proud. For different reasons. I had previous books that, I have one on mental illness, and that helped a lot of people. So that's special and near and dear to my heart. My historical fiction, I would have to say like the best one for me is With Love from Harlem, my latest one, because I can't tell you the number of people that say, I never heard of half these people in this book. And now I go down rabbit hole because I want to know more about my history. And so that means I'm leaving a legacy of sorts. I'm bringing Hank's story back to life.
And encouraging and inspiring others to do the research or to look at others. That's awesome. What piece of advice would you have for our listeners that maybe they have a story inside of them, but they're too scared to start? They don't know where to start. What would your advice be to a beginner, someone that had a story and wanted to become an author?
I always, it's a little morbid, but I always say I want my tombstone to say she wanted to or she did. And I wanted
Yes.
to say, well, whether I succeed at it or not, I want to try. And so I think that if you sit down and you try to write my book or your favorite book, if you sit down and it's like, I'm going to create that, that's intimidating. That makes you say, okay, I can't get this out. Get your words onto the page. Good books aren't written, they're rewritten. And so it's intimidating to sit down and think, I want to create the next Virginia Woolf story. But no, create your story, create the next Misty Brenner story, and let it all come together. That intimidation and fear has killed a number of great stories, and people need to hear your story. Or maybe they need to be educated, entertained,
Sure.
whatever. Your story will impact someone.
That's so true. Miles Monroe was a preacher and said that the richest place in the world are cemeteries. And it's because people didn't do what they were called to do. They wanted to do stuff and they never did it. And to me, when I heard that, it crushed me because I'm like, I want to live life to the fullest and do everything that I'm supposed to do. All the gifts that God has given me, I want to use them to my best ability. So that was kind of heartbreaking.
Yeah.
And I wrote a book and it's called Hope Rising. And it was so challenging. But so God had me journal for a year. And I journaled just different things, different topics, whatever came up that day, a devotional I was studying. And then I hired a company that I thought was going to ghostwrite my book. And that didn't happen. But it actually was better because I had the creative say, I got to tell the story, my story, the way I wanted to tell the story. And so, but it was challenging, I will say, but I ended up writing it. I put it together in 30 days. It took me years to write, right? Because I'm journaling and taking my notes from journaling. So it is a gruesome process, but I'm telling you, every day I run into people that are like, man, I just want to share my story. And it's like, just sit down and just start writing or type, just start inputting it, and it's so easy now, Word or whatever, there's so many programs, apps that you can use, you can just talk to, and then it'll type it up for you. So, yeah. So, what was your very first book? Was it something that you had on your mind and was a while before you started, or the second you had the impulse, you started?
No, so I've always wanted to write a book. But I let others around me, my mother, my family, love her to death, but she couldn't see my vision. And she especially couldn't see a Black woman writing a book. She was like, you need to get a real job. You can't make money writing books. And when the literary career took off, she was the first one saying, well, you can buy your mama a car. But at the time, she couldn't see my dream. But I had to believe in it for everybody else. And so I sat down, I stopped talking about doing it finally because I talked about it for the longest. And I committed to 3 pages a day, 5 days a week, no matter what. Because writing is not about wanting to write. It is about the discipline of writing. And so those 3 pages a day, once I committed to that, sometimes those 3 pages would turn to 30. And I was able to finish my book. But it took your desire to write has to become greater than your resistance to write.
Yes.
And I took that and I finally said, I'm going to stop letting life get in the way. No matter what, I'm not getting up until these 3 pages are done. And then sometimes I'd look up and I'm on page 30. So it was having that commitment. And then I couldn't get a deal. So I self-published. I independently published my first book. And then it caught the attention of Simon & Schuster, who picked it up and re-released it.
Awesome. That's wonderful. You have 3 beautiful children. I stalked your website.
Yeah.
Are any of them writers or have that gift in them?
Yeah, so my middle daughter had 2 books published. And she's an award-winning author as well. She is currently in law school right now. My daughter is a poet. She's more of a poet. And my son, he started writing a book when he was little, and by the end of the first page, he decided to just make all the words 72 fonts, 72-point font, so that his book could be done. So yeah, he's not the writer.
And what does your husband think about all of this? Is he your number one supporter, giving you ideas, helping you research, or is he just he does his thing and then he's there just to be proud of you?
No, so he is retired military. He is my biggest cheerleader, my biggest supporter. He, thankfully, my driver, because this tour it's hard, and when I have to go places here, especially around Texas, he says, "Get over there, be a passenger princess. I got you."
Oh,
So it's just wonderful. And what I love is like I'll be somewhere and I'm surrounded, especially after I speak, surrounded by people, and sometimes I forget to eat and I do all of that. And my husband is quick to come over and take my hand and say, "I'm sorry, she has to go eat. She'll be back in a little bit." You need that kind of person in your life.
you do. That's awesome. That's awesome. I have two final questions that I ask all my guests. The first one is, what piece of advice or words of wisdom would you give your 22-year-old self?
Oh my goodness. Just do it and stop making excuses on why it can't be done. I would, and I'm by that I mean everything. I always have been a little bit more out the box than most people. When I was in high school, a counselor said, "What do you want to be?" And I said, "I want to be an author, an anchor, and an actress." And she said, "You can't do all of those things." And I wish that I could find her because I would say, "How you like me now?" Because I'm not limited by a box. And so I would be bolder. I would tell my 22-year-old self, just do it and be bolder because that is the time. And I tell my children that now. Now is the time for you to experience it all.
Yeah.
And even if you haven't been there yet, if you're at your 62-year-old self, it's never too late.
That's so true. That's true. Yes, I love that. And lastly, what do you want to be remembered for?
Oh, what do I want to be remembered for? Telling stories that matter. Um, the first time I realized that was when I was writing, early on in my writing days, and someone would come and I've written a fiction story. I've written fiction, and they would come and say, I feel seen. Your character, I can relate to her. I have one a lot early on when there was the whole download thing and people didn't know how to come out with their sexuality. There was a young woman who came up to me and said, "I gave your book to my mother because I didn't know how to tell her." And she cried, I cried, and we've healed. And you're thinking, I just made some stuff up. And to have this kind of impact and thinking I just made some stuff up, but you're not just making stuff up. You are impacting lives, whether you write fiction or nonfiction. Somebody is going to read that book and impact their life. And that's what I want to be remembered for, making a difference.
Absolutely. Well, that's beautiful. Well, thank you again for joining me today, and congratulations on all your accomplishments. And I admire you, being a radio and television major myself. I just admire all that you have done.
All right. Thank you so much.
And remember, everybody loves bacon. Thanks for hanging out with me on Bits by Bacon. Be sure to follow, leave a review, and send this to that friend who always wants the inside scoop in and around the Houston area. I'll see you next time with more stories, real estate talk, and a little bit of everything in between. And remember, everybody loves bacon.